Sony has a good reputation in the interchangeable lens mirrorless camera category, and the NEX-6 is yet another strong performer. Hi, I'm Larry Becker, and this is the Sony NEX-6. It's a full-featured performer in the mirrorless interchangeable lens category, and the 16.1 megapixel APS-C sensor and quality lens options mean that it's designed for enthusiasts who want more than a point-and-shoot, but who don't necessarily want the size associated with DSLR cameras. First, let's have a look at some of the features that might attract folks to the NEX-6 in the first place. It has both automated features for beginners and manual settings and modes for pros who want to get that extra level of control. That means it's a good camera for beginners who want to learn and grow. When it comes to making consumers and beginners happy, Sony has quite a few things that'll be appealing. The intelligent auto mode recognizes scene types and automatically adjusts camera settings to the best possible capture of what the camera thinks the scene looks like. And then, in either intelligent auto or automatic mode called superior auto, you can press in on the bottom of the control wheel and access what Sony calls photo creativity. This gives novices the ability to do things like defocus the background or adjust brightness or color without any understanding of aperture priority or other traditional exposure controls. And for people who want their camera to deliver special effects rather than processing images on their computer, Sony has picture effects that deliver the toy camera look, the retro photo look, and high contrast black and white, among others. A minute ago, I mentioned intelligent auto and superior auto. They're similar, but there's an important distinction. Sony says superior auto gives you better results. It will, as long as you know not to move the camera too quickly, because in this mode, it captures several images and composites them together to give you better results than a single shutter click with the normal intelligent auto setting. The manual suggests that low light or backlit situations might be best for the superior option. Just be sure to hold the camera perfectly still if you're using superior auto so it can capture those multiple images if it needs to. Another couple of advanced settings in the NEX-6 are just cool. There's smile shutter that snaps a picture when someone in the frame smiles, and there's face registration so the automatic systems pay attention to one face more than others that are in the frame. I'm not sure I'd use either one of these very much because unless you use them all the time, it would take a minute or so to find them in the menus, and by then you're probably just better off pressing the shutter button yourself. But they are cool features. For pros, there's a lot to love too. There's a good selection of available lenses. The pro shooting modes like program, aperture priority, shutter priority, and manual mode are all there. Exposure compensation and flash exposure compensation are available. There's a hot shoe for adding a more powerful flash if you want, or you can use the built-in pop-up flash. And that flash is mounted on one of those flexible support systems that allows you to pull it back with your finger a little bit so that you can bounce the flash off the ceiling for better lighting than just a direct flash. The focus system is especially quick at capturing focus, and it uses a hybrid system with phase detection technology. And speaking of focus, the NEX-6 does focus peaking, so confirming manual focus is easy. It also has a couple of burst modes. It can shoot an impressive 10 frames a second with the exposure locked. Couple all these features with the lens-based optical image stabilization on the 16 to 50 millimeter f3.5 to 5.6 kit zoom, and you'll be capturing quite a few sharp images. A note about that zoom lens. You can zoom with the zoom ring or with the tight wide toggle on the lens. But to me, the zoom ring felt a little strange. That's because it's zoom by wire, so there's a slight lag from the time that you twist the zoom ring to the time that it moves. And since the zoom ring feels kind of loose, I had a tendency to over zoom. I zoomed more than I planned to. It might take a little getting used to. The camera also allows you to zoom in 3 different ways, depending on how you have your camera set. There's the traditional optical zoom, plus there are 2 levels of digital zoom. The first level of digital zoom is called smart zoom, and Sony says it's magnified via high-resolution image processing, while the digital zoom, which is off by default, is magnified with regular image processing. In my informal testing, the smart zoom images looked good, but they didn't seem to be any sharper than if you just shot the maximum optical zoom and then took the image into Photoshop and enlarged it and cropped it slightly. The LCD tilts up and down, but it doesn't swivel. And in case you're wondering, it's not a touchscreen. Still, the controls on the NEX-6 are very comfortable, and after just a couple of minutes of looking around in the menus, you'll find that the controls are all rather intuitive. You can navigate the menus with the control wheel and the various soft keys, as well as the control dial. Now, the control dial might be easy to miss at first because it's not labeled on the camera and it's directly under the mode dial, so it looks like a part of the mode dial. As you would expect, there are robust menus and quite a few display options. I really like all the various display options because you can have shooting data displayed on an artificial horizon or live view. For still shooting, I always prefer a viewfinder over an LCD. This electronic viewfinder does the job quite nicely. And there's an automatic sensor that switches the EVF on and turns off the LCD whenever you hold the camera up to your eye. The NEX-6 has an interesting wow feature in how it handles wireless file transfers. You can either join an existing Wi-Fi network and set up your camera to push images to your devices on that network, or you can use the camera's Wi-Fi capability to set up an ad hoc network. If you do that, you can use a smartphone connected to the camera's ad hoc network and receive images that you shoot on the NEX-6. This can be a little involved to set up if you're not network savvy, but the manual does a pretty good job of explaining setups for various kinds of wireless image transfers. In the world of video, the NEX-6 can capture 1920 by 1080 HD video at 60p, 60i, or 24p. It captures video at that resolution and some other lower resolutions using AVC HD video encoding format. If you wanted to capture MP4 video, you can pick 1440 by 1080 or VGA resolutions. The NEX-6 has a dedicated video record button, but that doesn't necessarily mean that this camera is intended for pro video projects. Its lack of a microphone input jack makes that apparent. Granted, the hot shoe of the NEX-6 is both a standard hot shoe, so it can support aftermarket flash units, and there's extra contact pins in it that allow for Sony add-ons. So Sony does technically support external XLR mic input via an adapter. But that's not a really likely purchase for NEX-6 users because the mic adapter combo costs almost as much as the camera itself. I've mentioned a couple of times how intuitive I think this camera is, so I have to tell on myself a little bit. The only thing I had to read the manual for was to figure out if I was charging the battery the right way. Since there isn't a separate charger, you put the battery in the camera and then you use the supplied USB cable connected to your computer or alternatively connected to the AC-powered USB adapter that they provide. My problem was I was looking everywhere for some little glowing LED and I just couldn't find it until I read the manual. Turns out it's right beside the mini USB socket on the camera and almost completely blocked by the cable and the little door when it's plugged in. The Sony NEX-6 is a nice interchangeable lens mirrorless camera with a good sensor, lots of consumer and enthusiast features, a good selection of lenses, and some video capability. And it's available as a body only or in one of several kit configurations depending on what lenses you want. For Kelby Training and B&H Photo, I'm Larry Becker. Thanks for watching.
For more information, please visit us online, give us a call, or stop by our New York City Superstore. You can also connect with us on the web.